You're watching Roll for Crit. Today we are taking a look at the game Bullfrogs from Thunderworks Games. This is a 2 to 4 player card game in which you are taking on the role of little frogs. You can see they're little frogs of different colors, and it's essentially an area control game where you're vying for control of the lily pads on the field. So the game always starts off like this, with this log in the middle and these lily pads here. And how does a turn work, Will?
Well, everyone has a deck of cards right here with your little symbol on it.
Right.
And each deck's the same in terms of what's actually in them, just prettier artwork. You always have 3 cards in hand which have different lily pads. They can range from having 3, 2, or 4 lily pads in the corner, which corresponds to the number of actions you can take when you play the card. So you choose one of the cards. I'm going to just choose this 3, for example, which is the most prominent in the deck. And you place it adjacent to any card on the field. Now, let's say I placed it here. That means I have 3 actions. And my actions can consist of 2 things. Either placing one of my frogs, which are mostly regular frogs, but you also have 2 bullfrogs, which you will get to soon.
I'll get to them soon.
Or sabotaging someone else's frog, which means moving it to an adjacent lily pad. So if there was a frog here that wasn't mine, even though I'm green, I can move it to either the log or here.
Right, and as soon as all the spaces on a card are filled up, you score it. Whoever has the most guys there wins. Why that's significant, we'll get back to the bullfrogs, is because they are worth 2 points of strength, whereas regular frogs are worth 1. So
right.
They give you a little extra bonus.
And they can't be sabotaged, which I mentioned earlier.
Right, they're too strong.
In addition, wherever I played that card dictates what cards I can affect. So if I played it here, I can only place any card in this row and column. Right. So I can't touch it if you had any frogs here.
So your placement is very important.
Right, it tells you where you want to interact. Now, let's go to the part you mentioned, scoring.
That's
so
a big
when
part.
a lily pad becomes full for whatever reason, but through sabotaging or you placing your own, so I'm going to place 3 of my guys here and your bullfrog for this argument. You score it. To do that, first you see who has the most points there. In this situation, Jonathan actually has 2, even though only one of his frogs are there because it's a bullfrog.
Right.
But I have 3, so I would win the card.
And it's worth the number of points it says in the corner.
Right.
You get that card.
But before I get that card,
before you get it,
frogs get to jump ship. Now, starting with all the loser frogs, so in this case it's just you, but if there are multiple players, you do each of the losers.
Right.
You jump one of their frogs onto an adjacent lily pad. And only one frog can jump to that lily pad. So once a frog's been there, you don't jump anymore.
So in that way, if there are extras, say this was surrounded by 4, and let's say it was one of these, so I'm cheating a little bit, and there were 6 frogs here, only 4 of them have spaces to go to.
Right, at most, only 4 frogs will survive.
So the extras either return to their pool, or in the case of the bullfrogs, you won't get to use them again.
That's the risk. So, and bullfrogs always have to jump last. All little frogs jump first.
Right. If they jump to the log also affects scoring. At the end of the game, you get points for how many frogs you have there.
And bonus points for if you have the most.
So there's a lot going on. It's there's a lot of strategy in terms of where to place your things, when to place your things. But the nice thing,
I think one of the big things that I noticed late when we were playing these games was this definitely a game where I think the phrase "pick your battles" actually really, really affects the game because of that hopping rule we just explained. What happens is you'll be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to score this for you, but then you have to hop my frogs onto this, which will give me the strength to control that area.
And that's one of the great things I think about this game is that even when you're outscored on a card, the other people, you aren't out of the race by any means.
There are plenty of times when I would rather lose a card in order to get my frogs hopping and spreading and make you lose control.
The chain reactions can be very powerful.
Yeah.
So
the one last game we played actually, because this is when I really realized this was a point when we're looking at our frogs. I had most of mine. You had like 3 left. All your frogs, you had spread your troops well.
Yeah.
So what happened is for us it would be like, I could score this, and then he's gonna I'm giving you this 6-pointer and stuff.
Yeah, I know there's been plenty of turns where like you try to figure out how can I move them so they can't score anything, and if you have enough frogs in the right places, you're like guaranteed to get some good scores. And the best feeling in the world is when you actually manage to move them to score multiple cards in one turn.
Right.
So if you plan well, the chains can be really cool.
And the other thing which we forgot to mention is these cards are not equal. While they both save 4 points, I'm holding this one upside down, and you can see probably there.
Right.
If you score your own lily pads, they're actually worth more. So then you have to come into consideration of, do I try to score my own lily pads or prevent you from scoring yours?
Right, yeah, there's a lot of that.
And this changes dynamic depending on how you're playing. Right now, if you notice, because there's only 2 of us, we're really only using 2 colors. Right. But most of the games we played were 3. We didn't even get a chance to hit 4. I would like to see what happens with 4, because I feel that's a lot more chaotic. In which then there's a lot, like, well, the last game we played, I think you and I we all only scored maybe 2 of our own.
Yeah, something like that.
Like, we were pretty good at keeping everyone off their own lily pads.
Yeah, well, because it's much less, you're really just, I'll take whatever I can get, because there's a lot more to work with.
Mm-hmm. But if it was a 2-player game, we didn't get a chance, because it didn't even occur to us
then
until we actually recorded this, that there would be a lot more sort of, I'm just capturing my own, or...
Yeah, exactly. It really feels like in the description to me almost more of that. It has the feeling of a typical head-to-head duel kind of game. The fact that it fits 3 or 4 players, I think, is really cool.
And I don't think it's bad at 3 to 4.
No, certainly not. I think we enjoyed it a lot at 3 at least.
Another thing I really like that I'm seeing more and more in games. The game in particular I'm thinking of is Angelic Requiem.
Regnum Angelica.
And I'm going to be dyslexic. Is the fact that we start out with the same decks in terms of what's in them, but doesn't mean we draw the same thing. And what happens, which happened in our last game, is because we were playing all the cards, Jonathan, you can actually sort of keep track. Jonathan and I ended up with our cards that only give us 2 actions at the end, making it so we couldn't really do much.
Right.
While our third player, Neil, in our last game actually had a lot more of the bigger cards. It didn't occur to me until then. It's just like, why wasn't I keeping track of this? Like, I really need to play these. So there's a lot more interesting dynamic of, I could play this card that gives me 4 actions. That's really nice. But I'm making it so I'm more likely to have only 2 actions at the end of the game.
Yeah, do you want to save that for like a really powerful play?
And then in turn, if you see your opponent playing his 2 4-action ones, you're like, oh, he's going to have a bad late game.
Yeah.
I need to learn to take advantage of that.
It's definitely, the more you play, the more you really will tune into those strategies and being able to figure out which cards do they have left, which didn't they use yet, how many actions might they be getting. So on that logic, I should try and, maybe I don't need to worry about this side, I'll try to focus on this side or whatever. So it's a very simple game at its heart, but there's a lot of
strategy.
Yeah, it's one of those games where you might hurt yourself trying to think 20 turns in advance.
No, there's one of those ones that actually I would say that it's unless you're very good at reading people.
Well, that's true. Like I said, trying to.
Yes, because I remember in the last game, I'm like, all right, you know what, I'm going to do this here and this. I'm going to be able to score this next turn because there's no way Neil's not going to avoid scoring that 6-pointer one. And he did not score the 6-pointer. He scored the card I was playing to go. I'm like...
Yeah, definitely I think in 2 players would be a lot more, because once you add a third, and definitely when there's a 4th, yeah, but whatever the field looks like, it's probably going to look very different the next time your turn comes around.
And also the log becomes very funny endgame.
Yeah, because it's like, oh, I'll put a guy in the log. What's the big deal?
And then near the end game, you're like, we're tied. How can I get that one more frog on there?
Yeah, because you can't put your own frogs on the log. They must be moved by someone else, or if you score it.
Right. It's very hard. Pretty much, it's very hard to put your own frogs there.
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, and we would be remiss if we did not also mention the fact that, as we discovered,
it has wooden frogs.
Has wooden frogs, and every piece of artwork on each color's card sets, if you put them together,
we'll put a picture up because it took us a while to form.
Yeah, forms a puzzle-like picture that are
a mural that for each color because it has to do with the color. So, for example, you're holding the red ones there. If you look at the picture we put up earlier, you had like a red turtle with some dragonflies. Well, the green ones I had like some fall leaves and has a crocodile or alligator, I should actually say, on this one. I think.
So it's a nice attention to detail. This isn't going to be the most thematic game ever, but It is kind of, though it works well with the frogs. It's simple. It's not intrusive. But
now we need to play a game when I only am allowed to play in this corner. You only play in that corner. We have to make the mural.
Oh, that's like a whole other. It's like a co-op game where you're trying to put them together.
Yeah, but then you get that one, the fourth player in who just screws up everything and then scores one of yours. You're like, I wasn't finished.
That will probably happen. But that's Bullfrogs. I think we both really enjoyed it. It's I feel like it is an elegantly designed, simple, fast game. To me, in the same vein, I compared it to classical things like checkers or reversey, stuff like that. Final thoughts besides that? We recommend it? Anyone you wouldn't recommend it to? Probably not.
Mean, if you don't like board games, I guess.
If you're afraid of frogs, don't pick this up. Otherwise, we will probably have it for sale on our site very shortly if we don't already look for it. But we will also include a link to the publisher's website in the description of the video below. You can look at it, you can check it out. It's called Bullfrogs. If you want to let us know what you think of the game, if you've had a chance to play it, or if there's another game you'd like us to look out for in the future, go ahead and leave us a comment right on this video or email us, rollforcrit@gmail.com.
And of course, there's Twitter @rollforcrit.
Or our iTunes subscriptions or Facebook page or whatever you want.
Yeah, but if you really want to take a leap of faith, you can check out our website.
Oh, what's that?
It's rollforcrit.com, where we have more videos like this, where we actually sell a lot of cool games, and we post a lot of news. So if you want to keep up with the board game news, that's the place to go.
Absolutely. Check it out. Until our next video, friends, my name is Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler, and this has been Roll for Crit.